Sarvebhyo Namaha. A small announcement at the beginning. Starting from tomorrow, we will have Kashyap N. Naik speak on R.C. Majumdar, the great historian, the volumes that he wrote on Indian independence. Now, these volumes have suffered unmerited neglect in the public space. So, Kashyap Naik is delivering an important set of lectures, and I request everyone to attend the talk in large numbers and make the most of this lecture series. From the past 2 days, we have had the pleasure of listening to Ravikumar talk on DVG's Jnapaka-chitra-shaale. And what has stood out in this entire set of talks is the tone in which Hari has presented the enchanting episodes from the Jnapaka-chitra-shaale. He has ensured that the tone has always remained informal and conversational. It is almost as if we are listening to a friend who is talking excitedly about a subject that interests him, and we are never left out from the conversation. So it has been that good, and the tone, like I said, has always been informal. But at the same time, there has always been a structure to it, and Hari has a very good sense of proportion, and that was evident in the time he allotted to the various episodes, what to leave and what to include, and so on. And in this course of lectures, he has also drawn our attention to the various problems of our own time that have been plaguing our country, especially while discussing the various divans and the kind of administrative reforms and political systems that they brought into place, which can be adopted even to this day. So D.V. Gundappa's works, they offer us very valuable material to not just understand the past, but also to remake and reorient the present and also carve a better future. One point that Hari mentioned while discussing Sir T. Anandarao yesterday, it is very interesting to note that DVG had quoted from Sir T. Madhavrao's lectures on the administration and politics and so on, and Anand Rao had parted with the manuscript to DVG in 2 installments so that he ensures he reads and gets it back, and DVG also says that it is a remarkable work, and finally it did not get published because Anand Rao apparently did not have that kind of money. But it is to our pleasure that the manuscript has indeed been published very recently, last year. A professor of political science by the name Rahul Sagar has brought out the lectures as a book. It is titled The Progressive Maharaja, Sir Madhav Rao's Hints on the Art and Science of Government. So DVG's volumes, even a note or a segue that he makes into a somewhat unrelated topic, has so much to offer to us at this point in time. So I just thought that it would be useful for students of political science to make note of this important publication. On that note, I request Ravikumar to please accept our token of respect and begin today's lecture. Thank you.
Om Tat Sat. Ellarigu namaskara. Good evening, friends. When we study Vedanta, there is a very traditional idea of 4 elements to keep in mind: Adhikari, Vishaya, Sambandha and Prayojana. Now, when we apply that to our study of Jnapaka-chitra-shaale, who is the Adhikari? Anybody who is interested to refine himself or herself. What is the Vishaya? Although it is about the past, it is also about how we can learn from the past and pave a better future for ourselves. And what is the relationship between this Adhikari and the Vishaya is that almost we are like students to DVG and we are learning from it. So the role that the Jnapaka-chitra-shaale series plays is that it guides us. Not everybody is fortunate to have a great mentor, but when we read these volumes, we get constant guidance on various facets of our life, and that is the Prayojana, that we are learning and constantly going to a better state of our existence. I'm very happy to mention my friend Ashok is here. He has done all the illustrations for these volumes very nicely. And I must mention the way in which he went about doing the illustrations is very instructive for anybody who wants to illustrate a volume. He has read through every single page of all the 8 volumes of Jnapaka-chitra-shaale completely before getting into the illustration. So unless a illustrator understands the subjects first hand, he or she will not be able to give life to the drawings. So I'm very happy that Ashok is here. Today I have kept the subject of Bharat Ratna Mokshagundam Vishweshwaraya as the topic. I hope I can cover this so that I won't have to carry it forward for the next series, which might be probably in August, whenever the Gokhale Institute gives me the dates. Now, you will be surprised to know that when there were discussions, so after Anand Rao's divanship, there was a discussion who should be the next divan. In fact, almost it was taken for granted that H.V. Nanjundaya would become the divan. And when the Maharaja of Mysore at that time, who was Nalvadi Krishnaja Wadeyar, chose Sir M. Vishweshwaraya for the divanship, it came as a matter of surprise to people. You can imagine a person of Vishweshwaraya's caliber, people thought, what does he know about administration? He has not come through the Mysore civil services, and he may be expert in building tanks and canals and bridges, but what does he know about administration? What does he know about law and management and so on? So it was a surprise. And the Maharaja of Mysore thought long and hard about this, and he knew that H.V. Nanjundaya was very capable, but he felt Vishweshwaraya might be a better option. And the reason for this is because he had read through a lot of Vishweshwaraya's writings, his articles, and the articles convinced the Maharaja of the enthusiasm and competence of Sir M. Vishweshwaraya. Now imagine for a king to be reading the literature of various people, and out of that recognizing that Sir M. Vishweshwaraya's writing is very valuable, means that he was engaged in regular study. How many of our politicians today can claim to be involved in regular study? This is a question that they have to ask themselves. We don't know how much, who is studying how much. But it is very important for them to engage in serious study, at least for some time in a given day. The period of time when the selection of Sir M. Vishweshwaraya was made as the Diwan, it was a time where a fresh energy was required in the Mysore kingdom. The Maharaja thought, India is attaining a new form. It is a time during which the country is witnessing a rapid growth in industries as well as trade. Mysore should become accustomed to this new era. Hence, it is necessary for the state to have a chief minister. Basically, Diwan is like a chief minister with a modern vision. And Vishweshwaraya is a suitable worker who can tread this new path of development. This must have been the Maharaja's thought process as recorded by DVG. When Vishweshwaraya was invited to come to Mysore, he was already in Bombay in a very high position. There is no reason for him to come to Mysore because he was not getting a salary raise or something great new opportunities, because he was already in Bombay, which was a much more prosperous town. But what Vishweshwaraya wanted was an opportunity to work. He wanted to get a chance to turn his ideas into action. And for that, he needed a free hand. He needed to be in complete control of a particular situation. Therefore, he accepted the offer to come to Mysore. He first came in 1909, and then he later in 1912, he became the Diwan. The first time I went through this essay, what struck me was that if something like this is given as a non-detailed in 8th or 9th standard for Kannada students, or even now the English translation is available in English, if it is made as a non-detailed book, it will be just about 100 pages. But it will be such an invaluable insight for the child to get so much of ideas and inspiration to learn from a great visionary like Sir M. Vishweshwaraya. Now, I told you that H.V. Nanjundaya was slated to become the Diwan, and instead Sir M. Vishweshwaraya became the Diwan. And they were both from a same community. They were from both Muluknadu Brahmana community. And despite this, there was absolutely no feeling of ill will or jealousy between the two of them. When Vishweshwaraya was selected, it would have been very easy for Nanjundaya to say, oh, I should have got that seat, he got it instead, I will not do anything with him and go away. But instead, he closely worked with Sir M. Visvesvaraya, and he was the one responsible for the University of Mysore and helping set up the Kannada Sahitya Parishad and so on. There were times when Nanjundaya was very critical of Visvesvaraya's policies and decisions. But DVG says, even if it was not Visvesvaraya, anyone who ascended to the post of Diwan would not have been able to save himself from Nanjundaya's criticism. Even if Chaturmukha Brahma, the creator, had appeared before him, Nanjundaya would have said, why do you read 4 heads? Is one not enough? Almost it brings to mind the story of Nakiran in the Thiruvayadal Puranam, where he finds fault with even Lord Shiva. And he says, doesn't matter, you may have third eye, but if you have made mistake in a poem, it's a mistake. I can't help it. So that is the kind of sharpness and criticism that Nanjundaya would have. But all this was for a larger good. It was for the good of the state, the welfare of the people. This we should never forget. Although there were questions about Visvesvaraya's divanship, a lot of people were wondering whether he would be a good divan. The common people accepted him without hesitation. They gave overwhelming support to Visvesvaraya becoming a divan. Once in the assembly, there was somebody, old person, who was praising Visvesvaraya left, right and center, and he was getting very embarrassed, and he said, please stop, I don't need this kind of praise and all this thing. And Advocate Suresh Shastri, one of the senior advocates, he got up and says, sir, I know you when you were a small child, and from that you have grown up, and your Chikbalapur has become worthy to be on earth because of your birth. You will uplift the country. We believe in you. You are great, all these things. And then Visvesvaraya had a hearty laugh. He said, you are elder to me, so you say all these auspicious words. You have the authority to bless me, but who knows how I will behave after I become Diwan. So I need your blessings, your trust and cooperation. That is a sort of humility that Visvesvaraya had. And like I said, Visvesvaraya's intention to come to Mysore was not because he will get a fat salary or a raise or more money. He just wanted to have a free hand to serve the people. This was possible because Visvesvaraya was not any other engineer. He was not like an average engineer. He had a bigger vision for the country. Even before he became Diwan, in 1902, almost 10 years before he became the Diwan, he had written and published a pamphlet with the title A Vision of Prosperous Mysore. So, an engineer trained and living for a long time in the Bombay presidency, he had a vision for Mysore, which was his home state. And he had printed it just a Mysorean. He had not even written his name. But that kind of vision he had. So he had thought about the role of the Diwan, what had to be done for the betterment of the state, long before he adorned the post of Diwan. This was a guiding principle of Visvesvaraya's life. He would be very well prepared before he went and took up anything. There's another instance where DVG recollects about the building of a bridge over the river Ganga in some place in Bihar. By this time, Visvesvaraya was already, I think, past 90. But some of the people, they were not sure where exactly to construct the bridge. So they sent an invitation to Visvesvaraya for consultation. Most of them thought that he won't come. Anyway, he is 90 plus. They are all saying we should consult him. And we will just send an invite, formality. He may say all the best, I will, with my blessings or something. So DVG writes, it was a matter of great disappointment for those who thought that the old man over 90 years of age would not visit the spot. So Visvesvaraya came there, and they had arranged for one palanquin, palki, where he would be sitting, and because it all ragged rocks and everything, so they will just make him sit on the palki and take him and just show him that spot which they have already decided this is where we should build. They don't want his opinion actually, it is inconvenient for them. So everything was ready, and just take him there, show him the spot and take him back. He just jumped out of that palki and started running about, looking at all the place, surveying it. And all the youngsters who are 40, 50 years younger than him were not able to keep up with his pace. And they got tired. So finally, he just ran around, made all the notes, and then he came to the traveler's bungalow, put a big piece of paper on the table, did all the markings, and finally he wrote a report, and he called the financial head of the project. He said, this report has to be printed, but it will be sent to other foreign countries like the US and other places, so it should be printed in a very good quality paper and high quality printing. So the officer, he's a government official. Sir, as per the budget, whatever possible, we will try to do it and send it. He says, your budget cannot cover all this. I don't want your money. I will fund the whole thing, whatever it costs. But it has to be done in a high quality. So everything, whatever Vishweshwaraya did, he was very particular about the quality, not about the cost. Yeah, don't worry about it. I will give you the money. But it has to be high quality. Then a person like Vishweshwaraya, who was in his 60s, I think, by the time he became Diwan, he sought out D.V. Gundappa, who was in his 20s. There are, I think, about 30, 40 years difference between the two of them. He had read the Indian Review, which was a monthly journal of Madras, and Natation was the, G.A. Natation was the editor of the journal. And it had published some, I think, a review of Diwan, or he had written an essay about Diwan Rangacharlu in this journal. So Vishweshwaraya writes a note to G.A. Natation saying, I would like to send this letter to the person who wrote the article, and please forward it to this person. And the content of the letter, basically, DVG recalls all this from memory. I don't know whether he had kept the letter, but he recalls from memory so many years later. First, he appreciates the article about Rangacharya or Rangacharlu. Second is that he requests the assistance of DVG in matters of governance and so forth. Third is that a request for DVG to get involved in the working of the Economic Conference, which is a financial organization founded by the government of Mysore. And finally, to discuss all these details, a secretary will get in touch with DVG and he should cooperate. So it is not just an empty letter saying it is very nice, you should do these things, it will be nice if you get involved. But there is an action item that I will be sending somebody to get connected with you and you should cooperate with him. For this, DVG has given some justification why a person of Vishweshwaraya's caliber might have contacted a simple journalist like him. He writes, Vishweshwaraya has pledged for the development of the country. He is looking out for people who think about the welfare of the nation. If he thinks anyone is of use, a wee bit helpful, he would get in touch with such people and encourage them. This is the characteristic of greatness, DVG writes. However, when I look at this passage, I feel that DVG is underplaying himself. Definitely, the writing of a 20-year-old journalist of that high caliber would have attracted Vishweshwaraya, not because I don't think he would have got in touch with any and every journalist on the field. He would have seen the spark in certain people and got in touch with them, and DVG definitely is one of them. Speaking about Vishweshwaraya, DVG says, if I have to talk about him in a single word, it would be that he was like a Maharshi. He was a great seer, he was a great Rishi, extremely chaste, high in sattva, and an embodiment of selfless love. He says, a society is fortunate to have someone like him. The Almighty had bestowed such fortune upon our nation, but alas, He didn't give the wisdom and faith in sattva to use the fortune for our welfare. So this is true even today. Whenever there is a great contemporary person, we don't value that person. We don't realize how important that person is for our society. We tend to ignore that person, and the moment this person is out of sight, whether he leaves the country or leaves the world, then suddenly everybody writes long eulogies and praises and elegies in his or her name. So it is very important for us to recognize, not just as a society, but even at the level of family and individual, the people who are adding so much of value to us, we should never lose sight of that gratitude for important people who are influencing our individuals, as families, as societies. At any stage, we should not lose track of that, because otherwise later on it will lead to only a sense of regret and guilt. We cannot do anything about it once the person is gone. there's an interesting episode that took place just a little time before Vishveshwaraya became the Diwan. It was in the Sri Rameshwara Devalaya in Chamarajpet. And I think the chief Dharmakarta of the temple was Vishveshwaraya's mama, maternal uncle Ramaya, and who had taken charge of all the responsibilities. And there was a Harikatha program. And VP Madhav Rao was invited to chair the program, his erstwhile Diwan, and he was sitting next to Vishveshwaraya, who was the chief engineer, and they were Vishveshwaraya was watching it very sternly without much reaction on his face, I suppose. And the story was the Ekadashi Vrata of Rukmangada or something. So VP Madhav Rao thought maybe Vishveshwaraya does not know the story, and he explained this prasanga, actually this is what it is. Then Vishveshwaraya looks at him and says, that's all right, but look at those children wandering there, the torn clothes and dirty faces, untidy hair, unhealthy body, lean legs and hands, and crying all the time. Does the Purana not have anything to say about that? So his constant vision was the welfare of the people. So nothing less could have been imagined from a person who looks at joke falls and says, what a colossal waste, rather than enjoying the sight. He says so much of energy can be generated from this and so many people can benefit from him. It is just getting wasted. So that was his vision. DVG then says, this shows the mindset of Vishveshwaraya, and it can be explained as follows. Time and again we see how well DVG has this amazing knack of distilling the wisdom and giving like 3 points, 5 points, 10 points. These are the analysis. When we look at it, it seems so simple. He has just given 10 points, which is giving the mindset of Vishveshwaraya, whoever. But this would be a result of deep study and reflection on the particular personality. And if somebody looks at these points, that itself suffices. So many times when you are rereading the book, or even if you are quickly reading through the book, when you look at some of these highlights, that itself is very valuable. So he makes it so convenient. One has to just spend little bit of time. One need not even read the entire thing. He says, in our country, we frequently remember and relate instances from Veda and Purana, Ramayana, Mahabharata, all this thing. But do these episodes relate to the life of a commoner? The standard of living is far too low. Noble values on one side, abject poverty and poor lifestyle. How to reconcile these things? This was one of the things that was constantly in the mind of Vishveshwaraya. We utter sublime words to please the ears, but tread a mean path in real life. We say all the nice things, and every time we remember all the great saints of the past, but in practice we will just be very happy to give a bribe or do something like that. This is another thing. We have not just poverty in terms of wealth, the poverty of courage is of greater magnitude. So it's okay if you don't have money. If you are poor even in terms of courage, then you cannot accomplish anything. This is another point. If our country needs to be in a good position, our people must make up their minds to become noble. At first, worldly life should be raised to a good standard. Our situation today is a result of affirming the para, spiritual life, and negating the iha, worldly life. This is another thought of Vishveshwaraya. In some sense, I think even today, there is a great need for our people to raise the standards morally. The average level of morality which was there even 3-4 generations back seems to have come down drastically. So the average person, the morality, if it is raised even a little bit, that will make a huge difference on the society. And so on. He gives various points on how the mind of Vishveshwaraya was used to go. And finally, he says, our efforts must comprise scientific wisdom and outlook. On the one hand, it should also be discipline on the other hand. This is the moral. Having said this, Vishveshwaraya was not against tradition. He was also following the tradition to the extent that it seemed appropriate for him. Even in his eating, he would eat in the traditional way by not putting his hand inside his mouth. If he had to have a biscuit, he will break the biscuit and pop it into his mouth, which is the traditional way where the hands will not touch the teeth or the lips or anything while eating. So he followed this kind of certain practices. And he also was very respectful of the other person's traditional practices. When he would go for, initially when he met DVG and they would go out to eat something, he would request DVG to eat first. And when he said, why do you do that? Please have. I have crossed the ocean. You are a traditional person. You may feel bad. So please, you have first and then I will take it. So he was respectful towards the tradition, although the DVG was 30, 40 years younger than him. Even the manner in which he would partake of lunch every day showed the model set by his father. His father, Mokshagundam Srinivasa Shastri, was a traditional person, and those traditional practices had come down to Vishvesvaraya as well. So he usually ate his lunch at noon time, so he would have a bath, then he would wear a dhoti in the Panchakacham style. He will tie it in a Panchakacham style of Vedika Brahmanas. He would have an uttariya, and he will hold a towel in one hand and sit on a wooden seat. There will be a banana leaf, and all this thing used to happen in the Vedic style. And he ate very little. If he liked something very much, he would have 3 spoonfuls. That's what DVG says. 2 spoonfuls. If he was very happy, he will have a 3rd spoonful. And he was particularly fond of Obbattu, which he called as the national delicacy. And even in the Obbattu, he would have only the central portion, which is the main portion. He would have one of that, and that was his favorite thing. Or he would go for a walk and he will come back and have a small bowl of juice prepared from boiled apples, like an apple stew. So he was very careful in his diet, and also he was disciplined in every aspect of his life. And every time they would meet, first question he would ask DVG is, do you have the habit of reading? Are you reading something? What are you reading these days? Is there some new book? Every day, a person should read some inspiring books. At least half an hour every day, you should read a little bit. It's a very important thing. Otherwise, your life will be aimless. This was a staunch prescription. And DVG says, does it make sense for anyone to complain that this man never applied vibhuti on his forehead, never wore a rudraksha mala, and he never went to temples? All these things are external symbols. But if the tattva is nurtured in the heart, can these symbols not exist as per one's wishes and comforts? And we know also that Vishvesvaraya was not against all this. He was conforming to it in his private life, but he didn't make a big show out of this. There are some people who are interested to know whether Vishvesvaraya met Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, did he meet Swami Dayananda, and this kind of questions are raised. DVG says, I have to say a few words to people who ask such questions. Vishvesvaraya never went in search of such people. He didn't have any reason to go in search of these kind of spiritual persons. Not that he disrespected them, but he was determined in his heart what he should believe, what he should not believe, what he should worship, what he should not worship. He was very satisfied. And therefore, he never had the need to clarify these matters with another person. Second thing is, Vishvesvaraya was an immensely practical man. His mind never turned towards mysteries and miracles, supernatural activities, superhuman yogi pratyaksha, and these kind of things. His focus was on doing the duty, and the duty was what he saw in the world. So it was not necessary for him to believe in some invisible thing. Third is, he was very clear what he wanted to do, what he could accomplish in his lifetime, and anything outside of that was a waste of time for him. So he never bothered about it. Vishvesvaraya used to say, our duties are directly visible to us in this concrete world, and we are blessed if we do them properly. To the extent that once when DVG had gone to Muddenhalli, somebody gave him a piece of paper that had the writing of Mokshagundam Srinivasa Shastri. And very excitedly, DVG comes to Vishvesvaraya and says, this is your father's hand. I saw your father's handwriting. It was extraordinary. So what was written on that piece of paper? Oh, excerpts from the Upanishads, Brahmavid Apnoti, and so on, all these things. Then Vishvesvaraya smiles and says, he did many such things. That gentleman used to chant something from 5 in the morning until 11. It was a waste of 6 hours. And he had a hearty laugh. Immediately DVG says, we are now enjoying the fruits of the thing that he wasted, implying that because of that kind of samskara, we could get a great man like Vishveshwaraya. And Vishveshwaraya said, what is it? And DVG turns his hand towards Vishveshwaraya and says, Krishnaraja Sagara, Bhadravati. And without even letting DVG finish the sentence, Vishveshwaraya says, that's all right, where are we now? And then DVG has to complete his chain of thoughts. He says, I was reading this great article by a German scholar, Julius Jolly, or whatever, Julius Jolly, however they say it in German. And he has studied all the different Nibandhakaras and commentators, and he was amazed to see how 6 or 7 or 8 generations of scholars were there. So all these things comes in the family itself, the importance of lineage. So if there's a great person, his son also will be great, grandson is great, and so on, all this kind of lineage. And he gives a detailed explanation for the importance of lineage. So Vishveshwaraya listens to all this and he says, that's all right, but where are we now? So all the things, ultimately what mattered to him is, you have your Puranas and that and this, well and good. Where are we standing today? Where is India today? Where is Mysore kingdom today? That was the constant kind of refrain in his mind. So this pragmatism and patriotism, time and again we see in Vishveshwaraya. For the world, Vishveshwaraya is a great person. But how was he for the relatives? In the eyes of the relatives, Vishveshwaraya did not have a very great place. In fact, there is a story I heard long back when I was young, that before he became Diwan, apparently he called all his relatives for a dinner or something, and he told them, there is a possibility that I might be made the Diwan. However, I will accept it only under one condition, that I will not be asked for any favors from any of you. Only then I will take up this position. Otherwise, I will not take up this role. So, only after his relatives gave consent, he took up the role of Diwan. And many times people would complain to DVG and other people, what is the use of the great man? He doesn't give us any special privileges and that and this. However, DVG says, let me share a secret. Every month, Vishveshwaraya distributed a fat amount of money amongst relatives who he knew were genuinely in need of money. So he never made any of the relatives suffer. At the same time, unnecessarily, he did not give some freebies, did nepotism to his relatives. On the one hand, he may have been very aloof in matters of his relative, but when it came to his personal assistants, he was very, very careful. He needed the right people. He got one of his assistants, Jnapaka-chitra-shaale, from Madras. And already there was a lot of talk and discomfort in the local people when Madras, from the Madras presidency, or other people came to the Mysore kingdom. There was some sort of discomfort in the local people. So there was a lot of gossip. Why should they appoint this fellow? As if there are not so many people, competent people in the Mysore kingdom and so on. Vishveshwaraya had a reason for this. It is interesting, Vishveshwaraya has only to respond to the Maharaja. If he tells the Maharaja the reason for it, it is enough. However, he writes to DVG and tells him the reason for his picking of Jnapaka-acharya. He says, Jnapaka-acharya has worked with me for many years. He knows my whims and fancies. He knows whatever mark I make, he knows what is the meaning of that, the manner in which I prepare my drafts, the particular requirements that I have, he knows. So it is as good as fracturing my hands if I don't have a good assistant like him. And it is because of this kind of good assistance I have, I can do so many things. It is a weakness of mine, and I have conveyed the same to the Maharaja, and he writes to DVG, you too should permit me to move further in this affair. There is no need for him to convince some young journalist, but he makes it a point that this person is an Nishthavanta, he should be convinced. If he is convinced, then I am doing the right thing. There is a certain moral compass that probably DVG meant for Vishveshwaraya. Several times he would consult DVG on matters of the state and even some selections of certain people and so on, like in the case of Venkoba Rao, a well-known sculptor and artist. And I think many of you will know the famous story of how Vishwesvaraya forced DVG to get some checks from the government of Mysore for all the work, and DVG finally accepted those checks but never cashed them. He used to use them as bookmarks, and it was found in his trunk. Even during the time when he had so much of difficulty financially, he never took a single penny because he felt that he was a journalist and all the money he should earn was from journalism. This is the high standard that DVG had set for himself. And it is no surprise when you look at the kind of associations that he has had. We can only expect that from that standard from D.V. Gundappa. The opinion that Vishwesvaraya had about people coming from outside, I think, is very instructive even today. When people come from Madras presidency to Mysore kingdom, or in today's context, somebody comes from Maharashtra to Karnataka, or somebody comes from Europe to India, and any of such migration to our country, it is very important that the work carried out by them should be fruitful for our country. What work are they doing? Is it fruitful for our country? Is it being done for the overall welfare of the country? Unless we are sure about this, we must be very vigilant. So, people may come in the guise of helping you out, but actually for some other nefarious purposes. Like so many of the Christian missionaries came, their intention was very different. But on the surface, it seemed that they are helping the local people. So it is very important to wait, watch and analyze, that DVG says, that Vishwesvaraya used to tell DVG, that it is very valuable, because in many cases when it's specific subjects, expertise is only available outside the state. Your state may not be so diverse and so rich in human resource that all kinds of experts will be there. So you may be forced to import certain experts, but all the time you must be careful to keep in mind that they are working for the welfare of the country and they are carrying out the instructions given by the people of that state or that country. Earlier I mentioned about the Mysore party and the Madras party, which was very active in the early days, and that came to an end in the tenure of Diwan Vishwesvaraya. However, a different kind of dispute that started was the non-Brahmin movement. So the Madras-Mysore dispute was a different kind of disagreement because of linguistic background. Here it had something to do with caste. And this was born with the Prajamitra party, and it had origins probably in the Justice Party of Tamil Nadu. Around the same time, there was a demand for reservations in the government jobs for non-Brahmins. In fact, there is a scholar called Leela Dushkin who has written on the non-Brahmin movement in princely Mysore, and she had even come to discuss this subject with D.V. Gundappa and done a research. In fact, S.R. Ramaswamy sir was telling me, if somebody wants to write a biography of Sir M. Vishwesvaraya, one must definitely look at Leela Dushkin's work on the non-Brahmin movement. For Vishwesvaraya, he thought this was absurd because he found the social discrimination incorrect. He said, it doesn't matter what the background is, we should only go by the competence and the capabilities of the individual. He or she can come from any background. But at that time, there was a lot of pressure from different factions, which we will come to later. He found it very difficult to deal with this, and therefore he also stepped down in 1918, finally. When Vishwesvaraya came to Mysore in 1909, there was the economic conference, which was kind of financial assembly that was created. And it had three branches: the Committee for Industries and Commerce, Committee for Education, and Committee for Agriculture. So at that point of time, Vishwesvaraya was the chairman of the Committee for Industries and Commerce, Nanjundaya was the one for Education, and Puttana Chetty was for Agriculture. And this economic conference had also started two periodical journals. One was the Mysore Economic Journal, which was an English monthly, and the Artha Sadhaka Patrike, which was a Kannada weekly, and both of them were edited by Hayavadana Rao. So under the activities of the community, several of the things what happened in Mysore came under the purview of the economic conference, be it the Mysore Bank, Bhadravati Factory, some of the small scale industries, Mysore Chamber of Commerce, Mysore University, Karnataka Sahitya Parishad, and the Krishnarajasagara Dam and the canals of the river Kaveri, like Ermine Canal. All these things came under these three committees. Also, in the discussion of these committees, sometimes DVG recollects some of the absurd suggestions given by the members. So one of them, who was, I think, Subbarao, he had given a suggestion that if you should have a dairy with 10 cows and 15 buffaloes, and a buffalo gives 2 seru of milk in the morning, 1.5 seru in the evening, and all this calculation day and night it gives, and it gives some 1,277.5 serus every year, and this milk is sold at the rate of for 1 rupee you sell 4 serus, and all this he does all the calculation, and every 9 months a calf is there, it sells at 25 rupees, and totally 8,000 rupees profit. All this, after explanation, one Srinivasa Rao was a planter from Chikmagalur. He said, "Sir, which breed is this cow, which is like a clockwork? Every morning and evening it gives this milk, and every 9 months it produces a calf and does exactly, according to the timetable. Which, particular the breed it is, I would like to know." Then people realize the folly, because it doesn't work like how it is on the paper calculation. Similarly, some of them made all sorts of suggestions. There is 5 or 6 theatres in Bengaluru, all the drama companies, and a lot of people attend dramas every evening. So we can collect all the urine and we can extract ammonium sulfate from it. And this kind of all the suggestions used to come. So although it is supposed to be a serious committee and all the intellectuals are involved, that doesn't stop people from coming up with absurd suggestions. I had mentioned how Seshadri Iyer was responsible for the Shivana Samudra project and the Marikanive Dam and so on. Vishwesvaraya also, without any economic conference, by his own merit and his own capability, could have easily accomplished all the projects that were done under the economic conference. To a great extent, that's also how it happened. It happened not because of the economic conference. Almost one can say it happened despite it, because of Vishwesvaraya's efforts. However, Vishwesvaraya attributed the fame of his endeavors, which were in reality the product of his own acumen and ability, to the assembly founded by him. So it is because of his humility that it is said that economic conference created all these lasting organizations. DVG talks about managing of expenses of the economic conference. It is noteworthy here because even today we have this problem. The 3 major heads of expenditure in the economic conference were travel expenses of the members, sumptuous meals and snacks, and unnecessary printing. Even today in many organizations, things are printed without any reason, rhyme or reason. Lot of money is spent on food. And travel is such a broad thing. Somebody traveling from his house to the meeting alone is not counted. He travels to go from his house from Rajajnagar to Baswangudi. He may go taking a route through Whitefield and Hoskote and something, finishing 23 other things on the way and then coming to work. Nobody knows. So on a single day, the pretext of meeting multiple committees, he will raise some 10 bills. And so like this, all the prices were going up. It became an easy means of livelihood for more than 100 people. So you didn't have to do anything. All you have to do is show the bill and get the money. Many times it happens. And the refreshments, if you look at it, boiled snacks and all the damrot and the fried snacks, roasted cashews and almonds, badam halwa, kosambri, all it's like every day it's like a Madhave Uta. So people would come before the meeting, they will demand for the food, they will not have breakfast at home, they will come here and have breakfast, they will also take some in parcel and go. So all this kind of things, when something is free, it can easily be misused. Even today we see that. So they will come again for refreshments. They will, before the meeting they will polish one or two plates. After the meeting they will polish one or two plates. So at no point of time it was the members never felt that bored to attend the meetings, because it was a chance to meet friends and eat well. So they don't have to spend a single penny from their pocket, and they would have all the meals and meet people. So it was, DVG himself writes, no one should brush this aside thinking this is my assumption. In the Nehruvian era, many members of the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha were said to have been following this. And it is true even today in many of the organizations. Whenever something is free, people don't value it. And this has been seen across cultures, across generations. Even in Israel, for example, when they first established the kibbutz, they used to give free electricity to free food and things like that. So immediately they will go and get some friends from other places, and everybody will start eating free. The moment they started charging for electricity consumption dropped drastically, because then you have to pay for every unit of electricity. So the people became careful. The moment it was free, it had no value. So this is something that we have to be very careful about even today. Even in the secretary, so like I said, many of the times when we see these episodes, we find parallels in today's world. The incompetence and the troubles that they face. So Vishwesvaraya had to get a certain file cleared in the secretariat, and it had been going from one table to another table in the Atara Kacheri. And despite Vishwesvaraya, the Diwan, asking for this file several times, it was difficult to locate. He was so upset, he said the secretariat has neither a body to kick nor a soul to damn. At this rate, how can the work go on? DVG recalls a thing that Vishwesvaraya used to tell him. In our country, when a child is born, it is like as if the baby is 60 years old at birth. By the time the child appears for the BA examination, it has lost all the energy. It is so exhausted. All its respiratory capacity is spent in clearing the exam. By the time the child looks for the job, he will have a hunchback. And following this, it endures for about 5 or 6 years. By the time the child is 25 years, it will start looking for an easy chair. After we get our independence, there will be no ordinary chairs in our offices. People will be pretending to work for compulsion. This is the fate of the educated class. It is such a prophetic statement. If you go, I have myself seen in some of the government offices at after lunch, people will be sleeping, and it is one person who is dedicated and working and pulls the typewriter. Other people saying, "Don't disturb our sleep." I have seen it myself. So this is a state of affairs. So this is the thing, and we see even today this kind of problem. There is a role of the superintendent. So each of these committees had some superintendents. I think there were 8 districts at that time in Mysore. The 8 superintendents were identified. So what would happen is, let's say there is some unknown village in Shimoga district, and there is an old chowtry and the walls have developed some cracks. And the superintendent who visits the village will help have some chowtry renovated and the walls slightly improved. And in the diary, he will write, "I have built a chowtry in the village for the convenience of the villagers." What he would have done is he would have put some cement here and there. But in the diary, he will say, "I have built this chowtry for the convenience." And somebody else will say, "Oh, I have built a straw fence to protect all the dry fodder. Hulluwame I have built completely." Whereas it would have been a repair of something. Now, how much time and effort will be spent to go and verify each and every one of these things? Because if the main job of the boss is to verify the work done by the juniors, then he might as well do it himself. The basic trust has to be established so that whatever work is done is of a certain degree, and every single thing need not be checked. So that moral fabric of the organization, of the society, of the government has to go up to make things easier. For it to benefit everybody, this standard has to go up. And whenever the government tries to come and rescue the people, always this kind of problem is there. So that's why we really, in the true sense, we need a minimum minimum interference from the government. Because before before independence, before all these systems were in place, the general wisdom of the people were able to take things forward. The moment the government came and said, we will take care of everything, we will give freebies, we will give all these things, the whole system has become very fragile. So in a true sense, this minimum government, and that doesn't mean maximum governance, minimum limited governance also. Only certain things government need to do. Rest of it, people should be allowed to do what is suitable for their own ability. Otherwise, generally, if somebody is doing your work, why would you lift a finger? You naturally tend to become lazy. The economic conference also used to conduct certain lectures to educate the masses. So when they conducted lectures, the school teachers, the headmasters were told to bring all the students. And if the students didn't turn up, the headmaster would be held responsible. And this was not very sustainable, and this fell on Vishweshwaraya's ears. He was at that time in Chunchankatte, he was going through in Mysore district, and there was a huge jatre. And he saw a lot of people had come. There were so many activities going on. Snake charmers were there, goat fights, circus, Nambarata, all these things were there. So Vishweshwaraya thought, if there are people coming to see these events in such a large numbers, this will be a good time. Why don't they use this time to listen to lecture? So although Vishweshwaraya is extraordinary in many ways, I think he did not know the pulse of the people, human nature of the common man, because he is at such a high level. For him, even wasting 2 minutes is a sin. So for him to imagine that people would just be wasting their entire life is outside of his imagination. So he said they are coming to watch all the fair and jatre, so let us have some lectures. And so we should teach them about the right way of agriculture and seed protection and that and this. One Yajnanarayan Iyer from the agricultural department, who's a great scholar in these matters, he starts talking about the right kind of soil and that and this about agriculture. Then suddenly somebody and he spoke also very nice, good Kannada and very sincere person. He wants to help the people and so on. Suddenly somebody shouts, Tagaru, Tagaru. So then Yajnanarayan Iyer was like, what is this Tagaru? I'm not sure. And suddenly some Tagaru, Tagaru. And after that, there is a rousing in the crowd, and some of the staff member of Iyer's department, they're like, please relax, what is happening? He said, sir, if we delay further, the ram will lose the heat. So the fighting will not be thrilling anymore. You can always talk later. There is no rush. And then they all go to watch the fight of the rams. They run away. So this is the nature of our people. And DVG says that Vishweshwaraya did not know for the common people, what is Priya is more important than what is Hita. What is pleasant and agreeable is more important than what is good, what is which is their welfare. What they need is pleasure and fun of the moment. They do not need sublime issues. And this is exactly what Yama tells Nachiketa. He says people are behind pleasure, but what is good is more important than what is pleasurable. And from that Upanishadic time to now, it is always that Preyas is taking a higher position than Shreyas, which is more important actually. So people don't want good, they want pleasurable. This is a reality. For Vishweshwaraya, he disliked leisure. For people's body and mind should always be active, should not sit idle. He didn't like fun and sports and chit chat and music, and whenever he went, he was interested in population, statistics, what is the details for the investment, sales, this, how many schools are there in your district, how many girls' school are running in your place, what is the attendance record. So anybody, any meeting, all the superintendents and everything, they would be flabbergasted, and their intention is not to tell lies, but what will they do when you ask this kind of question? They will just make up some statistics and feed it to Vishweshwaraya. To the extent that even a person like DVG, it was not so easy, because all the delicacies will be there. And Vishweshwaraya would say, please have something. Then DVG said, no, I will have later with some other friends. We will discuss the thing, because you finish your coffee in 4 seconds and I will just be only person eating. So I would rather finish the work and then eat. Vishweshwaraya told him, well, you are very young, you should eat well. And there is a story that S.L. Bhairappa once narrated when a group of friends had gone to meet him. He was, when at that time, I think Vishwesharaya was in Bhadravati, and some official had come to meet him. So Vishwesharaya said, please give him all the coffee, tea, everything, biscuit outside, let him peacefully eat it. When he comes to my room, he should start discussing, because I don't want to be sitting and watching him eat his biscuit and drink his tea. It's a waste of my time. Let him finish all that. You sit with him and give him company, let him finish and then come. So that was the measurement in Vishwesharaya. There was a difference in opinion regarding the reserves of the state. A person like Sheshadri Iyer had collected certain amount of reserve funds for the state, which were to be used in case of famine or some other natural calamity or war or something. Whereas Vishwesharaya was of the opinion that such reserve funds were unnecessary. He used to say, we have this money, and over and above that, we are taking loans at interest. If we use this money judiciously, then we don't need these additional funding. Theoretically, this argument seems tenable, but practically, DVG says, it is dangerous, because not everybody would have the caliber of Vishwesharaya. If Vishwesharaya kind of person is the Diwan, this may work. But anybody else in that position, it may not work. So therefore, a rule cannot be made for the exceptional people. The rule has to be made for the average people. When Vishwesharaya was there, he might have emptied the treasury, but he gave so much of opportunity for creating assets. So that kind of a capable individual may vary from the Shastra, but Shastra cannot be written keeping in mind some extraordinary individuals. If any of you have seen Vishwesharaya, I'm sure all of you have seen, always he used to wear a three-piece suit and a turban, and he was in Western attire. And this is his practice even when he was in 101 years old. When anybody came to meet him, he would be in his suit and tie and everything. When he became Diwan, some of the traditional people who are used to wearing, panchakacham and some kurta or shalya, they said, oh, maybe we should also dress in a modern way to impress Vishwesharaya. And they went and got themselves some coat and collar and tie and everything. But they did not know how to wear it properly. So when they started talking in the representative assembly, that bow tie started going in circles and something was open. And it was a very funny thing for people who were observing. So Vishwesharaya called them and said, I think your collar, you have to put the button. There is something called button, you have to use that. And finally he said, see, this is, this, if you don't, better for you. He just said that you have forgotten to button your collars. Then they realized that it is not meaningful for them to change their attire just to impress him. He is not disrespectful if you wear a dhoti and kurta. He dresses in a certain way. The representative assembly that was there at that time was only functioning as an advisory body. They were giving advice, and it was up to the Diwan whether he took that advice or rejected it. He had every right to reject any proposal that came from the assembly. But Vishwesharaya was a person who wholeheartedly respected the opinion of his people. Whenever a proposal was rejected by the assembly, Vishwesharaya would not go forward with that, he would redraft it. There were times there was a tax policy that he came up with, the assembly rejected it. He could have still gone ahead with it, but he reflected and made some changes and again brought forth that policy. It was rejected partly by some of the members rejected it, some of them accepted it. So a third time this income tax bill was tabled, and finally when the majority were convinced of it, he went forward. This was the path of Vishwesharaya. If an opinion or an issue was expressed to people with a valid reason, he believed that people would understand. People should not be pushed to urgency. The necessary opportunity and space should be provided for issues. Awareness should be created in the people. If all the aspects and intricacies of the issue are clear to the people, they will appreciate the decision of their own volition. They don't have to be coerced. This was the belief of Vishwesharaya. He firmly believed in the discretionary power of the common people. This is the sign of a great leader. A leader has to have faith in the people he is leading. If the leader expresses even slightly a mistrust in the people that he is leading, that will completely bring down the morale of the people. This is true even in the case of in a classroom. If the teacher starts off saying, "Nivella ee sati pass agalla," then what will be the morale of the students? If the parent tells the child, "You cannot accomplish anything in your life," what will be the morale of the child? So it is very important for the leader to have faith in the people. Also, this doesn't mean it is a blind faith. Later on, there is one interesting episode that comes where in the Mysore, in the conference in Trivandrum, Vishwesvaraya would have assigned some work to DVG to cross-verify certain figures and numbers. Vishwesvaraya has, and DVG would have seen it and said, "Yes, I have cross-verified." And Vishwesvaraya said, "If you have seen it, then I don't have to worry about it. No problem." And then he will assign some other work to DVG, and when he is busy doing that, he will personally check all the numbers. So on the one hand, he doesn't want to show the other person that I don't trust you. However, it is not a blind trust. He will also check it himself. He may not have checked every single thing, but at least he will do a dipstick kind of a thing, random check, and to ensure that it is in place. So while you have trust, while you portray the trust, also at the back, you must ensure that there are no loose ends. This is Vishwesvaraya's sharpness. I mentioned about this agitation based on the non-Brahmin movement. This Mysore, the Prajapaksha was formed in 1718, and DVG was present at the meeting when the party was formed, because he was very close to even people of the founders of the Justice Party, the Prajapaksha Mandali, and all these people. They wanted social justice. Basically, the objective of the party was to attain community-based or caste-based reservation, which was social justice. But when social justice comes at the cost of justice, it is a very big problem. Social justice is based on a premise somehow that everybody should have equal outcomes, which is never possible. One can, in fact, even when people say that equal outcomes are not possible, we should give equal opportunity. Equal opportunity also is not possible because of the fundamental reality that people are not equal. Each person is different, and there is no question of equality in a real world. And if at all you want to make everybody equal, that means you have to sacrifice freedom and liberty. In the very small volume titled Lessons from History, Will Durant beautifully captures this. He says, if history has taught us one thing, it is that liberty and equality can never coexist. If you want real liberty, then there will be inequality. If you want forced equality, then everybody has to lose the liberty. So the basic idea that everybody is unequal and equality can only be found in that ideal condition of Advaita is what Sanatana Dharma teaches, which is far more practical than all these social justice thing. However, it has become very prevalent, and we are seeing the ugly visage of social justice in the last 100 years all over the world, not just in India, everywhere. And the sooner people realize the madness, the better it will be for the society and for individuals. So anyway, at that point of time, there was this agitation, and so there was a Miller committee that was established under the chairmanship of Leslie Miller, who was a British Indian civil servant, and he was in the Madras presidency. Later also, he was in the Mysore Darbar. So he made a report how we have to create the representation for committees, and this Miller committee report. And this was not at all acceptable to Vishwesvaraya, and therefore he also said, if you are going to bring this to practice, then I am not going to continue. And he resigns. What he does is, when this Miller committee report came, he took a long leave and went on a foreign tour. I think he might have gone to Japan or something. That was also the end of the First World War. And the information about his resignation was not made known to the public until the 4 in the evening. All the employees of the secretariat were asked to gather in the assembly hall of the Atara Kacheri. One by one, he shook everybody's hand and thanked them for their cooperation and their work. And while going back, he went in his own car. He did not go in the government car. While coming in the morning, he came in the government car because he was still Diwan. When he went back, he had arranged for his car to come. That was the sort of the dedication, discipline, integrity that he had. Many times, Vishwesvaraya used to tell DVG, what facilitated those 5 years of mine as a Diwan was that I always used to carry my resignation letter, quarter sheet, in my pocket. At any point of time, I'm willing to leave this place the moment my principles are hurt. I had made this clear to the Maharaja on day one. So this is so important because today the first thing that people think about when they are looking for a job is what is the package. Rather than thinking about, is it aligned to my interest? Is it expecting me to do something which is against my conscience, or is it something which is going to help the economy of the country? These are all not at all considerations in the beginning. Is it near my house? Can I work from home? What is the pay package? What is the chance of growth? Again and again, it is to do the peripheral thing. The core of the work is many people, of course, I'm not generalizing, but there are many people who don't consider these core details, that my principles are hurt, so therefore I will not continue to work. Many times you say, oh, my principles are hurt, but I will not look that side, I will just do quietly here. But Vishwesvaraya was not like that. In fact, when he, in 1917, when he went to Japan, some people had come to the railway station to see him off, and his secretary at that time was D.M. Narasimharaja, who I had mentioned as a brilliant public servant. So he extended his hand to hold Vishwesvaraya's bag. And Vishwesvaraya said, no, this is my bag. I am a private person at this moment. I am not a Diwan. Here, I will carry my own bag. Whereas if I am going on office work, then I will give you the bag. But now I am not the Diwan. In fact, DVG says when Vishwesvaraya has to go on some circuit visits, he would have 2 sets of candles. Whenever he is reading something related to government, he will use the government candle. When he is writing some personal letter or reading for his own private thing, he will use a private candle. So to that last degree, he was so conscientious. There is an interesting debate between P.S. Shivaswamy Iyer and Vishwesvaraya. Shivaswamy Iyer was a prominent lawyer and public figure of Madras, and he was also a scholar of law. He was well versed in many of the Shastras. He was governor also at Madras government later on. He was very good friends with Vishwesvaraya, and once he had come to meet him and he had stayed in his house, and both of them had come for breakfast. They came from their respective rooms, and the first thing was that he was wearing a tie pin, Shivaswamy Iyer, and Vishwesvaraya pulled the tie pin down below the point where the button was, when he had put the button on the coat, so that it is not visible. The idea was that tie pin is something which holds the tie, it is not visible to the other person. And after a little bit of time, then Shivaswamy Iyer has pulled it up again so that it becomes very visible, because it had a golden, some kind of a golden pin on the top, and some diamond stud was there. So again he pulled it so it became visible. Then quietly Vishwesvaraya went near him and again pulled it down. And after the third time he got fed up and he said, making the tie pin visible is not the custom. Then Shivaswamy Iyer said, if that is not the custom, then why should I use a tie pin? Then Vishwesvaraya says, does it not sound boastful to exhibit our possessions like this? And he said, why do we dress well? Why do we dress well? To make other people happy. So can I see my necktie or my tie pin? It is for other people's enjoyment. And this kind of debate continued. Now we see how careful Vishwesvaraya was when it came to elements of modesty. He would tell people, when you go and sit in somebody's car, or when you sit in your own car, you should not sit as if you own the vehicle. You should sit on the edge of the seat, and slowly over a period of time you should go back to make yourself somewhat comfortable. You should not have a aggrandized way of sitting. And if you have a driver, you should buy him good clothes, because the kind of clothes the driver of the car wears shows on the owner of the car. So small things like this mattered a lot to him. I mentioned earlier that Vishwesvaraya was a person for merit, and he was very upset when this caste-based reservations were suggested in a Miller committee. However, he was also a stickler for discipline, and just because somebody is competent didn't mean that he could get away with indiscipline. When he was managing the iron and steel factory at Bhadravati after his divanship, he learnt about some employee who used to keep stepping out of the thing to get fresh air with his friends, and here and there he would go out and come back as and when he wanted. He observed this for some time, and then finally he told the manager that, please call this person and give him 3 months salary and ask him to get out. And the general manager, who was I think Venkatananappa or somebody, he said, no sir, he's actually a very capable person, he's a competent guy. Vishwesvaraya said, how does it matter to us if he's capable? What is it for us if he's a good worker? Ignorance in issues involving public censure will lead to the uprooting of conduct of thousands of employees. We shall not get involved in his personal affairs. His behavior may be right or wrong, that is not our concern. We must follow and respect the etiquette of the common people in the factory premises by not taking liberties to the extreme. Therefore, I have taken the decision. So, along with competence, discipline also was a very, very important thing for Vishwesvaraya. Vishwesvaraya also wanted to, he had so much of love for the people. See, we sometimes forget that a very intelligent person can very easily just do his own thing, earn money and live lavishly and be happy. He need not think about other people at all. There is no requirement, because he is at such a level, he can command any salary, he can work anywhere, and he can do whatever he wants. He needn't look at the people also. But at every single step, a person like Vishwesvaraya wanted to do something for people. At the age of 90, he wanted to publish a handbook for young citizens which had a compilation of writings and addressed various issues from politics, economics and education, society, all these things he wanted to do. But, DVG told him, see, and he had asked, I think he had asked DVG also to write a few chapters. So they were to collaborate. It was decided that he would write a few chapters and I would write a few chapters, says DVG. And he didn't show much interest in it, and then Vishwesvaraya kept pestering him. Finally, DVG said, giving advice does not suit my nature. I am adamant. Youngsters of the present generation, this he is writing in 50s or in the 1950s. Must be late 50s, because he died in 62, Vishwesvaraya. So giving advice, youngsters of the present generation are like this to a large extent. They do not learn from reading books. This is 1950s, I'm saying, not 2023. They do not learn from reading books. It is only after burning their hands do they fear the fire. In some, the path of sama, reconciliation, doesn't work with us. We only respond to danda, which is punishment or force. He began to laugh. And here, Vishwesvaraya remembered self-help books of his times, like Self-Help by Samuel Smiles and Plain Living and High Thinking by Davenport Adams, Longevity and Success and all these kind of things. If he had had little more energy and time, probably he would have written it. But that was the sort of mindset that Vishwesvaraya had. He was so concerned even about Gokhale's health. He used to write to him and say, this is a paper cutting I have got for good living. You follow these principles. So not everybody is disciplined like him. Gokhale also was not disciplined and unfortunately died very young. There is a poignant episode of Vishwesvaraya visiting the house of D.V. Gundappa sometime in 1946. Unexpectedly, Vishwesvaraya came to DVG's house. Naturally, it was a pleasant surprise, pleasant shock. He made him sit down and offered him something to drink, and they spoke for some time. Again, a month or two later, he visited DVG, and one more time. And finally, after the third or fourth time, DVG went to his house and said, sir, please, I don't want you to take trouble to come to my house. You call for me, I will come to your house. Wherever you are, I will come and meet you. Vishwesvaraya said, is this not very strange? Why would somebody tell, don't come to my house? don't you want me to come to your house? So DVG said, please listen to me patiently, sir. There is nothing more fortunate for me than you coming to my house. Places on which you step will get purified, and with that comes good fortune. But my reason is very different. Looking at the rickety chairs in my house, the torn mats, the dirt and the knickknacks in my house, your feelings will get hurt. I know that very well because 3 or 4 times in the past you have tried to give me some high paying jobs, give me money. I didn't accept any of that because of my foolishness. You will be reminded of such things, you will feel bad. I don't want to give the chance for such things to happen. And immediately Vishweshwara said with a smile, yes, yes, you are a fool, you are obstinate fool. Then there was a proposal to create an automobile plant, which later became the Hindustan Aeronautics or HAL, which Walchand Hirachand set up. But during the time of this automobile project, they wanted to write an appeal to send via telegram, and to prepare this appeal to be sent via telegram. So it is a telegram is just a simple like one sentence at most, right, or 2 sentences, because every letter is charged. So to send this telegraph to some place, 5 people had come together. There was a committee. Vishweshwara had formed. He was at the head of the committee. Walchand Hirachand Seth was the second person. Mallipatna Venkatnaranappa, who was the general manager of the Bhadravati factory, then Hayavadana Rao and DV Gundappa. So they all met in the evening at Walchand Seth's house. Each of them went to a different room, prepared a draft of the telegraph. Then they all came together, compared it, and again made corrections, took the best one, and finally once again revision and everything. There was a revision. In fact, if DVG had once gave a pencil to Vishweshwara without an eraser, he threw it. He said a pencil without an eraser is useless, because unless you have an eraser, because he loved refinement. No, first time you will not get it right. You have to do it again. Even if he was writing a simple letter to somebody, he will first prepare a draft, and then he will check the draft. If the comma is in the right place, full stop in the right place. Then he will get it typed on a high quality paper. Everything should look very good. Even the sticking of the stamp, it should be exactly 1 centimeter from the top and from the right side and the corner in the right way. If it is not stuck in that way, he will get upset. So every small thing, there is attention to detail. So this was the focus and care that he took. In fact, there's one episode that DVG writes. He just happened to go to Vishweshwaraya's house in the afternoon just for a few minutes, and he knew it was time for his bath. But the moment he came to know that DVG had come to visit him, he again changed into his full attire of 3-piece suit and welcomed him. And DVG said, sir, why all this thing? You can just be in your casual attire. I have just come with a few minutes. I am on my way. I am rushing. He said, doesn't matter. Somebody has come. They had to be welcomed in the right way. I have to be presentable. It's very important. Even the smallest thing, he used to take care like this. And there are so many things. I wish I can go into all the details, but you should read this particular episode. He was so interested in going to the core of the thing. Any extra, things outside, he had very little patience for it. There was a chronic practice those days. In the start of the representative assembly, first thing would be a few people would sing praises of the Diwan. They will have some owing to the dharmic conscience of our esteemed ruler and the Diwan's administrative dexterity, this land is blessed with timely rains and opulence of grains, and all this thing people would read. Some 10 people will read like this, half the day will be gone. So he said this is 1 or 2 years he tolerated. From the 3rd year, he said, this is absolutely junk. It's a waste of time, and flatterers have no place in the representative assembly. We will focus on work. That was the... And he, in fact, once called a meeting of some of the important officials to his house and gave them a nice meal. And the reason for calling this meeting was he had one pressing question. And the question was, there are people who randomly visit me without any notification, whether it's 6 in the morning, 10 in the morning, 6 in the evening, and they never seem to leave. They just show up. I don't even know who they are. They just come and they don't even get up from the seat to leave the place. There is, there is no rush in their words. They have all the time in the world, but I am not at leisure and to sit with them for empty talks. But they come here with affection, and it's difficult for me to avoid seeing them altogether. I am stuck in a dilemma. What should I do? How should I escape the situation? How do you deal with this matter? Please advise me. And then some people said, sir, we are also facing the same problem. That is how our people are. Who can mend their ways? And Vishweshwaraya requests, this situation must change. If our people don't value time, instead spend all their life in empty talk and hollow appreciation, a country will never progress. Similarly, DVG recounts the story of how the Krishnasagara Dam was built in a record time despite floods, because they had promised the John Taylor and Sons that they would produce a certain amount of electricity. Even though the head of John Taylor and Sons from London himself wrote a letter saying, it's fine because I understand nobody would have predicted this natural calamity, Vishweshwaraya said, absolutely nothing doing. If the people of India decide on something, then it must come into effect. We must not go back on our word. So day and night he worked and ensured it was completed on time. Like I said, it is very easy for a great person to be aloof from the realities of the world and from the people. But Vishweshwaraya was very keen that all this should be imparted to the next generation. He had the habit of visiting his village once a week or once in a fortnight. And once when he had gone to Muddenhalli, he saw a huge group of school students who were running out of the school and playing, and he was so happy to see the school students. He called the headmaster and gave him some 30 rupees and said, please have some laddus and vadas and snacks prepared for the children. I am so happy to see them. The parents of the children came and said, sir, this feeding them is all okay, but you should give them some words of wisdom. So please, next time you come, you should speak to them. So the next visit, he went to Muddenhalli. He gave a talk, but he was somehow not very happy. Snacks will be provided, but he was not very happy with the talk, because his usual thing was to make detailed notes and speak from that, because he knew he was not a great orator. So he was very methodical, but for some reason he could not prepare that kind of notes, and he went back home and he was not at all happy. So again he called for another thing. This time he had neatly prepared everything, and he spoke whatever he wanted to say, and again he arranged for snacks and ensured everybody had a memorable day. This is kind of almost humorous when we look at it from today's point of view. Why would he go to do all this? But how much of internal conscience, driven by internal integrity, that person has to have, because he is not some retired person who has a lot of free time to come and again give a talk. But he was not satisfied. He has certain standards for himself. So it may be better than everybody else, but it is not enough for him. He has a certain standards and he has to follow that standard. He will never leave that. Vishweshwaraya used to wear a three-piece suit and he used to behave like Britishers and all this. However, at his core, he had a lot of practices which were ingrained in him from a young age, which was like frugality. Frugality was something that, especially from the West, people are by nature not frugal. Especially if you go further to the West, if you go to America, they don't even know what frugality is. He was so obsessed that if he sees a blank page, he will collect all the blank pages, one-sided page. He will make a hole in the top, tie a thread, and it will be there for all rough calculation. It will always be on one side of his table for any of the engineering calculations. Similarly, there were a few rooms in his house which are reserved for guests. And in every single room that was reserved for the guests, he ensured that there was a table, there was some scrap paper, like one-sided sheets with a sharpened pencil. So in case they got some bright idea, they would write it down. Unfortunately, not everybody is Vishweshwaraya, but he would make all the arrangements. The interesting story of when DVG visits Vishweshraya some days after his 98th birthday and sees him very busy and says, "What are you up to?" Uh, Vishweshraya says, "Look at this, I am attending to my funerals." And he said, "What do you mean?" All these letters, some 500 letters have come wishing me for my birthday. And what is this? I have to reply to each one of them. TV says, why is it you call these, they're all congratulatory letters, why do you call it funerals? He says, what else? It's just a waste of time, empty efforts. Now I have to sit and send a reply to each of this. And TVG says, what is the problem, sir? Get one standardized card prepared, just to say thank you for your wishes and you sign below it, or you get that also facsimiled, why you bother? How can that be? Each card has to be handwritten. If somebody has sent a 4-line note, my response have to be 4 lines. If somebody has sent a big greeting card, I have to appropriate to what has been sent. I have to do that. And if I spend every day some time and reply 10 or 20 people, over a period of time, I'll be able to reply to all of them. So this was the sort of meticulousness that he had. And his memory also was prodigious. He would remember all sorts of details from some old, engineering design that he had done. Then I mentioned about this conference in Thiruvananthapuram. There was a South Indian Princely States People Conference which was held in 1929. And he had requested D.V. Gundappa to be along with him. And they traveled in the train, and Vishweshraya was in a different compartment and DVG was in a different compartment. Every 15 minutes he would call DVG, they would work, and he says, you go back and relax for some time while I finish this thing. Again, after 15 minutes, somebody would come and call. And in the meantime, DVG would be hanging out with his friends and making jokes and everything, come back and work with him. So much of organization and process that were there in Vishweshraya's way of working. And at the conference, this Narayan Pillai was the president of the welcome committee. He said, first we had to start with the invocation prayer to the Almighty. And Vishweshraya said, why do we need a prayer? If you are mentally convinced our work is for a noble cause, won't the Lord accede to it? We can just start. No, we have specially requested a yati from Ramakrishna Ashrama to come and render it. Okay, so how much time you need? Just a half an hour. He says, half an hour for invocation, waste of time. Maximum I can give 10 minutes. You finish all this in 10 minutes, let us get to the work. So this kind of, cutting out all the unnecessary things is what he did. After the conference, they requested him to continue and, stay on as the president and continue the work. But unless DVG is involved, I don't want to be there. And DVG did not want to work in that kind of thing because he was himself employed as a freelance journalist. Finally, I'd like to conclude with one story of 2 photographs that Vishweshraya had. And while DVG was helping Vishweshraya with the second edition of Memoirs of My Working Life, he saw these 2 photographs. The first one was where Vishweshraya was seated between the governor of Bombay, Lord George Syndham Clark, and his wife, and they were going on a boat along a river. And the second one was where there was Mahadev Govind Ranade, who was putting his hand on Vishweshraya's shoulder and engaged in a friendly conversation. So DVG said, you must include these pictures in the book. And Vishweshraya said, nothing doing. And finally he said, okay, at least give me that photograph which you have with Ranade. He said, no, you will misuse it. I'm not going to give it to you. A man should be self-reliant, firm on his feet. He must not consider himself to have grown in stature because of accidental fame. I am only as tall as myself. I must not behave considering myself to be even an inch taller. This was the kind of, almost like a tapasvi, he was there. And of course, there is a small note on his relationship with Gandhi. And there is finally concludes with the sort of self-reliance. DVG, K.T. Appanna of the Modern Hindu Hotel had organized a feast in 58, which which is the diamond jubilee of the restaurant, and it was Vishweshraya was responsible in setting it up as well. And after the dinner, there was some pothole, and there was, by mistake, he stepped into a pothole. And it was raining heavily, and DVG said, he gave a walking stick to him. He said, please, he gave his walking stick and said, please use it. And he flung it aside and said, one had better perish than live so helplessly. He jumped over the potholes and reached the car. That was Sir M. Vishweshraya. Thank you very much for a patient hearing.